There's another thing that the Rebbe said by Fabrengi, which is in Geil Halacha, but this time the tone, the way the Rebbe said it, seemed like the Rebbe said it should be a certain way, and that is concerning the size of a yarmulke. Rebbe spoke about this, Motzei Shabbos Pashas Azriya Metzora, Tovshin Lamed Tes. And the Rebbe said that concerning the covering of the head by a man, concerning the yarmulke, for sure doesn't have to cover the whole head. It's not like the covering of the head of a woman that has to cover the whole head so no hair sticks out, but by a man it doesn't have to be that way. And he said it's enough if it covers reiv of the head. And he mentioned that there is a shak levataria, what the size has to be, and he used the term that there are some who are mahadir, use the word mahadir, which means sarcastically that they have a yarmulke which is etzba al etzba, the size of a finger by a finger. And you have to put pins in order to hold it to your head, it shouldn't fall off. That's what some do. And some do the whole rov of the head. And here it seemed clearly that the Rebbe is neiter, and from the tone of voice, the way he said it, that it should be covering the rov of the head and not like those who wear small, very tiny yarmulkes, because they just cover a little bit of the head, and then you have to have pins that they don't fall off. Another inyan, which is Negei al Halacha, that the Rebbe spoke by Fabrengen, was by the Fabrengen of Pesach Sheni, Tov Shin Mem Gimel. There he spoke about the Shaila, whether we say Tachnun in Krishma Shalamite, Motzer Rosh Chodesh, after Rosh Chodesh is over that night. Because we know the Rebbe said at Motzei Shabbos, we do not say Tachnun in Krishma Shalamite if you say Krishma Shalamite before Chatzos. But there the reason is because Shabbos is still Nimshech. We have Malava Malke, we have other things, Motzei Shabbos, which is a Hemshech to Shabbos. Geya Motzei Yontev, there's nothing to talk about. We certainly don't say Tachnun Krishma Shalamite because the day after Yontev is a day you don't say Tachnun, that's Isru Chag. So you don't say Tachnun the day after. So certainly that night, which is the beginning of the day after Isru Chag, you don't say Tachnun. The question the Rebbe asked is, what about Motzei Rosh Chodesh? And the Rebbe said that it seems that there's not a good enough reason why we should not say Tachnun Motzei Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh is over, and that night already starts the second day of the Chodesh. So there's l'chura no real reason why not to say Tachnun. So v'meila there's a shaila whether we say Tachnun or not, but from the way the Rebbe said it, it seemed that he was neiter that you do say Tachnun Motzei Rosh Chodesh, which the same thing would be not only Motzei Rosh Chodesh, but any other day that you don't say Tachnun, not Shabbos or Yontif, that Motzei that day you should say Tachnun in Krishma Shalamite, because there is no real reason not to, because the day is over and finished. The day is over. So when the Rebbe asked the Shaila ben Negei Rosh Chodesh and was mashmer that that's how he holds, but I can't be for sure, so it would be the same thing with every other day. The one that the Rebbe left actually with a Shaila was ben Negei Pesach Sheni. That Motzei Pesach Sheni, there is a svara maybe that you should not say Tachnun, even though Pesach Sheni is over. But the reason is because Pesach Sheni is the 14th day of Iyar, the day that they used to shecht the Korban Pesach, Pesach Sheni. But they would eat the Korban Pesach at night, after the 14th, which is the beginning of the 15th. So it comes out that the night after Pesach Sheni is still a hemshech to Pesach Sheni. So here there is a svara that you should really not say Tachnun, Motzei Pesach Sheni. But the Rebbe said he didn't see, it's a pella why he didn't see this in Sfarim talk about it. But in this, I don't know if it was so mashmoez that the Rebbe held that you should not say Tachnun. I can't say, I don't remember. But Benegeye, the first part of Motzei Rosh Chodesh, which seemingly would be the same every time we don't say Tachnun, it seemed from the way the Rebbe said it, but if I bring him, because I heard it over the hookup, that it seemed like the Rebbe was neiter that you do say Tachnun Motzei Rosh Chodesh by Krishma Shalamite. And the same thing seemingly would be by the other days, not like Shabbos Yontiv, but Megei Pesach Sheni, he left it as a question. In the Fabrengen of Shabbos Parshas Miketz, Shabbos Chanukah Tovshin Chavches, the Rebbe spoke about Niftzat Film. And this is the way it's written in the Hanoche. The Rebbe said in Yonim about Niftzat Film, then he asked Akasha from a Maimer of the Friedrich Rebbe, Maimer Vorech Tovshin, and the Rebbe said that Mashiach is coming soon and he's going to answer all the kashas. He'll answer this kasha also. Then it says in the Hanoche, Choser K'tzaz, there's something missing, and it continues that the Iker is that we should do in Miftzat Film. Yeser says that Yeser is we should do more in Miftzat Film. Now, this chosek tzas, it says something is missing. I want to fill in what was said then that did not go into the Anoche. And this is what the Rebbe said. He said that now he sees that the greatness of mitzvah film from the fact that there is an opposition. And an opposition dafke from Yidden, which is similar to what it says in the Yutas Kislev, that the opposition against the Alter Rebbe could have come only from Yidden. It came from Avigdor. Why? Because Goyim cannot oppose to something that great. And the Rebbe used the Lashon that by Yidden, Bavua de Bavua Islahu. He referred to the Gemara where it says that Shadim, which really means all kinds of klippe, don't have a bua de bavua, which means a shadow of a shadow. And Chassidus explains, it means that they don't have the level of Yechide. By a Yid, there is Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, Yechide, even the level of Yechide. And by Goyim, by Klippa, there is no Yechide. And the Lashon is, they have no bua de bavua, but the Yid does. So the Rebbe here referred to it. He said that by Yutas Kislev, the opposition could only come through a Yid because the union of Chassidus is so great that nobody could oppose it but a Yid. And here we see the same thing, that who's opposing Mifsat Film, Dafke Yidin Bavu de Bavu Islahu. And the Rebbe said, I already said many times before, if they don't like the mitzvah of Tfil, choose a different mitzvah to work on. Lapeil, not only they don't do any other mitzvah, they even want to weaken off mitzvah Tfil, the mitzvah of Tfil. But the Rebbe said we were already promised, and that there was a psak din of Bezn Shalmailo, that in everything there will be Yad Achsidim V'al Holyeno. The Chassidim will always have the upper hand, and therefore it'll be Didan Notzach. And then the Rebbe continued, the ikir is that we should do a mifsat film, b'yeser seisa, b'yeser, etc., etc. So this is the part that's, when it says chosek tzasir, this is the part that the Rebbe said. In the Farbrengen of Shabbos Parshas Bahar B'Chokesai, Tovshin Lamed Aleph, the Rebbe spoke about a Mishnah in the 5th Perik of Pirkei Avos. The Mishnah where it says, Arba midas b'yeshim lifnei chachamim, there are 4 types of Talmidim who sit in front of the chachamim. And it goes svug, umashpech, mishmeres, v'napo. There is somebody who gets everything and retains everything. Somebody who doesn't get it l'chatchila, goes in one ear, goes in the other ear, and then goes into more categories of Talmidim b'fnei chachamim. And the Rebbe asked the kasha, why doesn't he count another midah, which is somebody who gets a little bit and a little bit not? But then the Rebbe says that really there is a 6th category, which there's a question why the Mishnah doesn't mention it. But that I'm going to leave for later. That's how it says in the Hanoche. And later on, towards the end of the Farbrengen, the Rebbe spoke about it. And here it says Choser Ktsas. It says that this, he said he's going to leave for later, but it says Choser Ktsas, there is something missing here. And I'm going to say what was missing. There's few words that the Rebbe said here. He said that this 6th category, since this is something was hotzutom mit beisen sich, something that has to do with scolding, but das losen of später beschasmen wird kommen zu dem beisen. I'll leave this question for later when it'll come to the time when I will scold. And actually later on, when the Rebbe spoke about it, the 6th category is that you could have a Talmud who's sitting by Farbrengen, and it makes him fall asleep. So not only he doesn't hear anything, it makes it even worse. It makes him fall asleep. And the Rebbe went on in speaking about the problem of people sleeping by the Farbrengen. But in the beginning, when he mentioned that there'll be a 6th category, these are the words he used. That's, there is a 6th Sug, aber a Zewe der Ingen ist Scheiches zu Beisern sich, wird das Losen auf später, beschassen wird kommen zu dem Beisern. That I'm going to leave it for later when it'll come to the Beisern, which in English I guess means scolding, and later on Yitake spoke very sharply when he gave the Sinyan. But these are the words that are missing. And in the Hanoch it says here Chosek Tzas, and this is the line that the Rebbe said. After the Rebbe established Tzivos Hashem and instituted the 12 Psukim, the Shluchim in Miami wrote to the Rebbe Hatzoeh. And this is what they wrote. First paragraph said like this: Chabad House is planning to produce a record with songs of the 12 Psukim. We feel a recording of this kind will further the work of Tzivos Hashem. Another paragraph read, Tzivos Hashem headquarters in New York has given us permission to use the name and logo of Tzivos Hashem. They were very enthusiastic about the idea. Then they wrote the list of the psukim and which songs they're going to sing to it. And this is the list. To the Posik Torah Tzivalonu would be used the tune of the Shores of Montezuma. To the Posik Shema Yisrael would be the Mordechai ben David song of Shema Yisrael. To the Posik V'chol Deir V'Deir, the song of Ki Elikim. To the Posik Kol Yisrael, they would use the song of Wake Up Yidden. To the Pasuk Yekorev Elecha, the song would be Yankee Doodle Dandy. To the Pasuk V'hini Hashem Nitzov would be the song of just one Torah, just one Shabbos. To the Pasuk of Bereishis Bara Elokim would be the tune of Bismarck. To the Pasuk V'shanantim Levanecha would be a Russian march. To the Pasuk Yogaiti would be the song when Johnny comes marching home. To the Pasuk V'ahavta L'Reacha would be the song Give a Yell, Give a Cheer. To the Pasuk V'zeh Kol Odom would be Noide Be'Yehuda. And to the Pasuk Yismach Yisrael would be Napoleon's March. And then they wrote to the Rebbe, we picked marching songs because we felt children would respond to that type of music much more. And we are enclosing an estimate of the approximate cost to produce the record. So on this, the Rebbe answered like this. On the first paragraph, where they started by saying the Chabad is planning to produce this record and the 12 psukim, and this would further the work of Tzivos Hashem. So the Rebbe wrote, Levarer imlei kodmun kvar, to be mevarer, find out if no one did it already before you. Number 2, when they wrote in the next paragraph that Tzivos Hashem headquarters gave permission to use the name and the logo of Tzivos Hashem, and they were enthusiastic about it, the Rebbe wrote, Biksav, get this in writing. Sheleyu tainis achakav, there should be no tainis afterwards. Number 3, the Rebbe circled these songs. The song, The Shores of Montezuma, Yankee Doodle, Tune of Bismarck, Russian March, When Johnny Comes Marching Home, and Give a Yell. These songs, which are non-Jewish songs. So the Rebbe wrote on the side like this. Behamesuviv, and those that I circled. You need heiroa serav me anash yichye meire heiroa v'asken. You need a psak, a heiroa, from a rov of anash, who actually paskens dinim, not just, I guess, means not just someone who has smiche, but who paskens dinim. V'asken is also an asken and is involved in activities knowing these things. You have to ask him for a psak. Ha'efsheru kedai la'achshirim. Is it possible and is it worthwhile to kasher these songs, to make them kosher? And then the Rebbe wrote, Sveikai, if there is a suffix, dash, lechumre, underline. Should go lechumre and not do it. That was number 3. Number 4, and the words where it says that they wrote the Rebbe an approximate estimate of approximate cost, the Rebbe wrote, Kemedume godel midai. Number 4, he wrote, it seems that it's too expensive, too much money. Then number 5, Asker alatziyim lekol hanala were mentioned by Dale for all this, and then he wrote lahachzer amatzurav. That means that whatever list they gave in, the Rebbe said you should send it back. But this is the answer of the Rebbe. So we see here the Rebbe's approach when the Geya using non-Jewish songs, even if we're using it for psukim, the way the Rebbe wrote it here. And it's Negeya to know, because a lot of people do it, and this is the answer the Rebbe gave, and I doubt that it's bedafke for this and bedafke in this case. It seems like this is the Rebbe's approach b'chlal. In the Farbrengen of Shabbos Parshas Beshalach Tovshin Chav Ches, the Rebbe spoke on a Rashi, like he did every Shabbos, and he asked some kashas, and then the Rebbe said that he said many times that if there is something not understood in Rashi, you can't answer it with the nyonim of Yena Shel Teira of Chassidus, because Rashi himself says, it comes for pshat. Therefore, the first thing you have to do is answer it al pi pshat. And it has to be a teretz that even a ben chomesh lemikra, a 5-year-old child, should be able to think of it. Because Rashi learns with a 5-year-old child. Rashi is made to be mefarish the pshat of the posik, and ben chomesh learns pshat in the posik. Or if Rashi doesn't say anything, Rashi maybe answered it to someplace else, based on what Rashi said someplace else, it's answered. Or it's chatchila no kasha. And that's how much it says in the Hanoche. Then it says, choser k'tzaz, there is something missing here. And I want to fill in what's missing. The Rebbe said that when I say that it's made for a ben chomesh lemikra, it doesn't mean dafke a 5-year-old child. But it could be even a yid, talangeboard with a long beard, could be 75 years old, but if he's sleeping while he's learning the shiurim, then he's like a 5-year-old child. And the truth is, he's not even like a 5-year-old child. He's even less than that. He's not even a ben shomesh l'tasperis. He's not even a sholish l'tasperis. He's not even like a 3-year-old child that is ready for opsharenish. Because if he's not learning and he's sleeping, then he's not even like ben chomesh l'mikra. And this is the Rebbe Bavon. And then the Rebbe continued to explain how the kasha that he asked is answered by what Rashi says. The likud that it came out for Shabbos Parshas Matas Emasei Tov Shimem for Likutei Sichos was the Sikha that the Rebbe said the year before, Tovshin Lametes Matis Amasei. And in that Sikha, the Rebbe brings the Tanchume, where it says that when the Eibishter told Yecheskel the Tzuras Habayis, the shape and the way the Beis Hamikdash is supposed to look and the way the Beis Hamikdash is supposed to be built, so Yecheskel answered the Eibishter, Ad achshav anu nesuni begelo be'eretz tzneinu, we're in Golos now, and you're telling me to tell them the Tzuras Habayis, the shape of the Bayis, v'chi yechelun hein laseis. Can they do it now? They're in Golos. Haniach lem achi alam anagela. Leave it till they go up to Golos, and then you'll tell them. The Rebbe answered him, "V'chivil shabonai nesuni begeli yebinian basi bottle." That because my children are on Golos, so the building of the Beis Hamikdash should be bottled, should not be done. And therefore he told him that therefore you should teach him the Tzuras Habayis, the looks of the Bayis and the shape and everything how it's supposed to be. So from here the Rebbe learns out that when you learn about the Tzuras Habayis, you learn about the way the Beis Hamikdash looked, you are actually building the Beis Hamikdash. Because that's what the Eibishter said to Yecheskel. Because they're in Golos, they shouldn't build the Beis Hamikdash. That's why I'm telling you the Tzuras Habayis, so this building Beis Hamikdash. So the Rebbe brings out from here that when you learn Hilchas Beis Habchira, when you learn the halachas of the building of the Beis Hamikdash, you are actually mekayim the mitzvah of building the Beis Hamikdash. This came out for, as I said, for Shabbos Parshas Matis Masei Tovshin Mem. After the Sikha came out, I wrote in the Ha'aras Biurim of New York of 770, a shaila, what does that mean? What do you mean that when we're learning about the tzura, the shape of the bayis, and what the bayis is supposed to look, that's called building the bayis? Why is it called building the bayis? So I wrote that l'chura the pshat is like this. Just like when a person builds a building, there are many stages in the building. One of the stages is that you make blueprints, and you study the blueprints, and you write down, and you learn how the shape should be, and then you actually start building. So be'emes, the physical building of the bayis starts when you actually start building, and you bring the builders and they start building. But in the broader sense, when you start learning, writing and learning, studying the blueprints, it's already the beginning of the building. That's how the process of the building starts. And that's probably what the Rebbe means. That's what I wrote. My brother Nochem was the Mareches, the Eirech of the Ha'aras Atmimim 770. So he put it into the Ha'aras Biurim of Ha'aras Atmimim of 770. What he did was, when I wrote the Lashon that this is like the blueprints, he changed it from the word blueprints to the Lashon Difterois Upinkisois, which is the Hebrew word for blueprints. But this is a Lashon taken from the Medrash, where it says, Benegei, the Torah, that the Eibishter used the Torah as the blueprints of the creation. So there it says the Lashon Difterois Upinkisois. So he changed it for that Lashon. And he printed it. Came to Shabbos Parshas Re'ei Tovshin Mem, the Rebbe spoke about it. The Rebbe said that, I explained that when you learn about the Beis Hamikdash, you are actually building the Beis Hamikdash. So he said, somebody asked, which means in the Oros Hatmimim, someone asked that what is the pshat, and he explained, and the Rebbe brought what I explained there, that it's like the diftirois and pinkisois, and the Rebbe used the Lashon, if I remember correctly, this is similar to the Lashon of the Medrash when they gave the creation of the world, that the Torah was the blueprints. It says difterois upinkisois. So here too, if you learn the halachas of what the Beis Hamikdash looked like and how it's supposed to be built, you're learning the blueprints, and the blueprints is the beginning of the building. But the Rebbe said that's not what he really meant. It's deeper than that. And the Rebbe explained what it means is like this. What is the pshat? That by learning about it, it is as if you're building, that you are actually building the Beis Hamikdash. So the Rebbe says like this: in the Beis Hamikdash there are two inyanim. There is the Beis Hamikdash Hagashmi. There's the physical Beis Hamikdash, which is made of eitzim, avonim, stones, and wood, etc., etc. And then you had the machshava and the kavanah that's there in the building of the Beis Hamikdash. Like you had the Chachmei Lev, the Chachamim, who were involved in the building of the Beis Hamikdash. And we find this by Beni Mitzvahs that there are two parts. Like the Bach says that in Mitzvah's film, the mitzvah, the physical mitzvah is the actual putting on film, but part of the mitzvah is the kavanah that you have, shibud hameich v'alev, that you're giving over your brain, your intellect, and your midas, and your emotions, giving over to Hashem. So it's not the kavanah of the mitzvah. This is part of the mitzvah. And the same thing with mitzvah tzitzis. Laman tiskuru, that you wear tzitzis in order to remember all the mitzvahs. This is kavanah, is part of the mitzvah. The same thing with sukkah, the kavanah that you have to remember that the Eibishter had eaten in sukkahs in the midbar. This is part of the mitzvah. So the same thing about the gate of the Beis Hamikdash. The physical Beis Hamikdash is one part of the Beis Hamikdash, and then you have the machshava in the building of the Beis Hamikdash. That's another part of the Inyan of the Beis Hamikdash. That's a Chachmei Lev of the Beis Hamikdash, like it was by the Mishkan. So you have the kavanah of it, and the kavanah even before you actually start building. But when you have the kavanah in the Mishkan, the machshava about the Mishkan, that is part of the building with the Mishkan. And you gave example, just like when you build the physical part of the Beis Hamikdash. So even though it takes a long time, so the person who starts off the building, there was no Beis Hamikdash yet, he just put on the first brick. But that is part of building the Beis Hamikdash. And when the Beis Hamikdash is finished, like the Beis Hamikdash by Shlomo Melech took 7 years, when the Beis Hamikdash is finished, the person who started it, and when he did it, there was no Beis Hamikdash yet, he is part of the building of the Beis Hamikdash. The same in the Kavanah. The Kavanah that's there in the building of the Beis Hamikdash. So when we have the Kavanah now, even though there's not finished yet because there is no Beis Hamikdash yet, but since this is the Kavanah of the Beis Hamikdash, so from the Kavanah aspect of the Beis Hamikdash, we are doing the building of the Beis Hamikdash, because the kavanah of the Beis Hamikdash is part of the mitzvah of the Beis Hamikdash itself, mitzvah of the building. In other words, because there are two parts of the building, the physical part and the kavanah part, and when we learn now and understand the tzuras habayis, the way it's supposed to be built, we are actually having the kavanah of the building of the Beis Hamikdash, which is part of the mitzvah building the Beis Hamikdash. So Rebbe was machadash a big inyan here that it's deeper than what we think, that it's just the beginning of the Beis Hamikdash, because it's a blueprint of the Beis Hamikdash. The blueprint lav dafka that comes out from the Sikha, he didn't say it, that as a blueprint lav dafka is the beginning of the building. But the kavanah of the Beis Hamikdash is part of the spiritual part of the building of the Beis Hamikdash, which is part of the mitzvah, and therefore by learning the halachas of how to build the Beis Hamikdash, we are basically mekayim the mitzvah of building the Beis Hamikdash. The Rebbe quoted many times the Gemara in Masechta Shabbos Daf Chaf Aleph that Maaseh Rav. The Gemara says if you see a Maaseh, if you see an act, a behavior of one of the Chachamim, that is the teaches you the din, that you know that is the din that you could do as this Chacham did. And even though the Gemara says in Baba Basra Daf Kuf Lamed that Ein Lamedim Halacha Leimi Pi Limud V'Leimi Pi Maaseh, that you cannot learn other halacha, not if you're just learning about it, or even if you see a maaseh from a chacham, halacha lamaaseh, unless the chacham tells you that this is the halacha lamaaseh. So the Rebbe in Likutei Sichos Chelik Yudaled, page 50, makes the difference based on the Gemara in Baba Basra, that when do we say that we cannot follow the maaseh? The lashon in the Sikha is be'im negeya v'yesh mokim lites betam ha'maaseh. If the reason of the maaseh is negeya, it's important what the reason was, and there is a place to make a mistake that if we don't know the reason exactly, you could make a mistake in comparing the cases, so then we cannot learn out from a maaseh. Which, if we want to make it broader, what it means is that if you don't know all the circumstances and all the details of behind the maaseh, then you can't learn out from that maaseh. This is the halacha. And the same thing actually is b'negei the Rebbe himself. That by the Rebbe, when the Rebbe did something, which is a halacha thing, and he did it, if you don't know the circumstances behind it or all the details, then you can't learn out from there that this is the halacha. Now I want to give an example that when the Geya to Birchas Hachama was Tovshin Mem Aleph, so the Rebbe spoke about it in Shabbos Parshas Sazria, and he gave all the details of how to behave and what to do and what to say. And one of the things he spoke about was shechiyona, whether you make a shechiyona or not. And he said that by Pashtas you should say shechiyona, but nevertheless, in order to go out of any sofik, he said we should do as the Alter Rebbe says, if there's a sofik, take a new fruit, have a new fruit there when you make the shechiyona, or put on a new garment. And when you say shechiyona, you'll also have in mind the new fruit or the new garment. And b'meila, you go out of a sofik. And that's what the Rebbe said to do. When it came L'Peil to the Birchas Hachama, the Gaboyim gave out new fruit to everybody, that when they say Shechiyonu, they should have in mind this new fruit. The Rebbe himself did not have a new fruit on his tender when he made the Birchas Hachama. So later on in Shabbos Parsha B'Chukeisai, the Rebbe spoke about it, and he said that there are some people who wrote that since I didn't have a new fruit, the Meile is that I held that you really don't need a new fruit. So the Rebbe said, I want everyone to know that I put on a new surtuk, that when I came out to Birchas Hachama, I put on a new surtuk. And b'meili, you can't learn out because you don't know the circumstances behind it. You don't know what happened. You can't learn the halacha l'maaseh. And then Bechlal, the Rebbe went on to say by that same Farbrengen that there are some people who learned out from what the Rebbe said to do, that's exactly what the Friedrich Rebbe did in the year Tov Reish Pei Hei. And the Rebbe says it's not true. Who says Bechal the Friedrich Rebbe mit Birchas Hachama? Maybe it was cloudy, and in Leningrad in those years, that time of the year, it's very cloudy. So it's possible that the Friedrich Rebbe Bechal didn't make, and he says he wasn't there, so he doesn't know. But just to learn out, because I said that's what you have to do. So obviously the Friedrich Rebbe did that. You can't say that. And he said, this is what Spitz Chabad say. And he said, you can't argue with Spitz Chabad. What they do, they see something and they learn all the halacha from it. And they write it down in a rishima and they even add their own pirushim. And with that, you can't argue. So the Rebbe said, that's why when they gave in the Sikhe, the Rebbe crossed out. When they wrote the words that that's what the Friedrich Rebbe did, the Rebbe says, that's why I crossed it out. So here we see that even though the Rebbe did something very clear outright, you cannot bring a raya from there unless you know all the circumstances. Like the Rebbe said, that if you don't know the Tama Maise, then you can't learn out from the Maise. Same thing here, if you don't know the details. And therefore I want to say, other things that we know that the Rebbe did, certain things we have to be ma'ayin to know, is this raya halacha lamaise, or are there circumstances that we have to know about? And this I will discuss in the next voice note. One of the things that we have to think about, whether we could learn out halacha lamaisa from a behavior of the Rebbe, is the fact that the Rebbe did not make the brocha hagoimel after the heart attack. The din is if a person is sick and there's a sakona to his life, so when he becomes completely healthy, as the Alter Rebbe says, Yachzer leburi of legamri, he becomes back healthy as before, you have to make a goimel. Now, by the Rebbe, after the heart attack, he did not make a goimel. Now, we have to learn out from here. Does that mean that the Rebbe holds that by a heart attack you don't make a goimel or not? Because there is a svara that by a heart attack you don't make a goimel because whatever damage was done to the heart by a heart attack doesn't change. It's just that you could function later normally, but there is still a part that doesn't change, doesn't heal, and therefore you don't make, like some people say, or maybe different reasons, we don't know. But L'Peil the Rebbe didn't make. So we have to think about, does that prove anything? A person who has a heart attack, making a birchas hagemel. Now this is not the same as negeya, the bracha that we make on the trees in the month of Nisan, which some people also say that we did not see the Rebbe do it. But here it's not such a raya, because this is something that you do privately. Maybe at one point the Rebbe did do it privately. He saw a tree in front of his house, or maybe on the way to the Eo, that we could find out really. But something that you do privately, we can't bring a raya from the fact that he didn't do it, that we didn't see him do it. And later he's saying a raya. If you didn't see it, doesn't mean that you didn't do it. But negeya gemel, which is something that you have to do in front of a minyan, and has to be b'kriyas HaTorah, so the Rebbe would do it, we would know about it. So the shaila is, can we learn out from this some halacha b'negeya, the inyan of making birchas hagemel after a heart attack, or any similar case? But emes, we have to know the circumstances behind it, and then we have to know maybe there are other reasons, other things. So we have to be ma'ayin. Is there anything we can learn out from here? Another thing that I saw the Rebbe do, which is negei la'aloche, but we have to know if we could learn out halacha l'maisa from here or not. And that is that I once saw it was Friday, and the Rebbe went to the mailbox and threw in a letter in the mailbox. It's an exceptional thing for the Rebbe himself to throw in a letter in the mailbox. Obviously, it was something special, but it was Friday. And we know the Shaklavataria, can you send a letter Friday? Can we learn out from here? Because we don't know the circumstances, we don't know what the letter was about, we don't know where it went, we don't know, maybe it was something within the city, and we don't know exactly. But this is a fact that I saw the Rebbe do it, and we have to look into this to see, can we learn out any halacha l'maisa here, because we don't know the reason behind it, we don't know the circumstances, and that remains to be looked into. There's another thing that the Rebbe did, which is negei halacha l'maisa. And this is what I heard from Harav Krinsky, from the Rebbe's Maskirim. I think he even said this over in public. And that is that the Rebbe once asked him to buy something for him. And this was not for the institution, not for Merkez Machne, this was for the Rebbe privately. So he went and bought it, and he came back to the Rebbe, and he gave the Rebbe the bill. I think that's how it was, and the Rebbe looked at it, and the Rebbe was going to pay him whatever he paid for it. But then the Rebbe looked at it, and the Rebbe said, what about the sales tax? So he said to the Rebbe that the institution, I don't know, Merkez or Machne, whichever one, is a tax-exempt institution, therefore we don't pay sales tax. So the Rebbe said to him, but you didn't buy it for Merkez, you bought it from me privately, so it's a personal thing. So I have to pay the sales tax. So the Rebbe told him to go back to the store and pay them the sales tax that he really was supposed to pay on this. So here we see a Maaseh Rav of the Rebbe, how careful he was with anything that has any shemes to do with something that's not honest. And he told him actually to go back and pay the money that is owed for the sales tax. So that's something that's a hanhogi of the Rebbe that is negeya la'alocha l'maaseh. In the Farbrengen of Achen Shel Pesach and the Shabbos afterwards, which is Shabbos Pasha Shmini, Tovshin Chovtes, the Rebbe spoke a lot about not selling houses to Goyim in Crown Heights. Spoke Ba'aricha, spoke very strongly. He didn't mean Dafke Crown Heights, he meant all Yiddish neighborhoods, but he was talking specifically about Crown Heights. And later the Rebbe was Magia de Siche, and it was printed in a kuntras for itself. Later it was printed in the Heisofes to Lekutei Sichos Chelik Vov Parsha Mishpatim. But there are certain things that the Rebbe said Shabbos Pasha Shmini that did not go into the Mugad Kesich, obviously, but it also didn't go into the Hanoches. And I want to add some of these things that the Rebbe said. One of the things the Rebbe said in that Farbrengen the Shabbos Pasha Shmini is that there are people that have Akmumis HaSeichel, that have Krumas Seichel, that have warped Seichel, and they're saying that the reason I'm speaking about this because I'm a Negei Bedover. It's like Sheichat. It's like bribery. And Sheichat is Sheichat by everybody, even by Chachamim and Tzadikim, like it says clearly in Chumash. And therefore, I'm involved in it because it's Negei. They said the Lashon Loyal, or Mishpachte, or B'nei Beis, that's what they say. But the Rebbe said, B'Peil, when I said this, I said clearly it's a din, I offered the din, B'Feidish din Shulchan Aruch Heshem Mishpat. And I even pointed out words in Shulchan Aruch. When whoever wants could go and look it up. And if someone is lazy from looking it up, he could ask someone else to find it for him, look it up for him, and tell him to psak din. Another thing that they say is that when I spoke about it, I meant a certain person, Pliny ben Pliny. So the Rebbe says this also comes from warped seichel. Because Adarabah, that person is not selling, and that person is from our friends, from the Gute Freund. Till there was once somebody at Farchepet Lubavitch, Shama started up, said something against Lubavitch, and everybody was quiet. He was the only one that stuck up for Lubavitch. Adarabah, let's see the difference between him and the people who are talking about it. Those people are talking about it. I'd like to know, the Rebbe said, how much did they try to see that people shouldn't sell houses in Crown Heights to Goyim? And he had chances, a few chances to sell his house, once, twice, and nevertheless, he didn't, even though he had pressure, nevertheless, he didn't sell. So therefore, the Rebbe said, those who are saying these things should go to him and ask mechile from him. Not by me, he said, because I have akpeda on nobody. But to him, they have to go and ask mechile. Then later in the Farbrengen, the Rebbe said something else that's not in the Hanocha, and that I'm going to repeat in the next voice note. In the same Farbrengen of Shabbos Pasha Shmini Tovshin Chovtes, where the Rebbe spoke about the Shchune, and the Rebbe spoke about not selling houses to Goyim and working on it, the Rebbe even told a meifes that happened just days before, a few days before, but the way they wanted to divide the counties, etc., etc. And a meifes, he said, from the Rebbe the Shver, which went through him, the Rebbe said, and told the whole story, and that shows that if you stand b'teikev, the Eibishter helps, so you have to stand b'teikev and do it. So then the Rebbe said that we find by Matan Torah, when the Eibishter wanted to give the Torah, so he first said to speak to the women, and then he said you speak to the men. And the reason is because it's easier to peil on the women than on the men. So the Rebbe said the same thing here. This is what really I should have done. I should have first spoken to the women. And the way the Rebbe expressed himself, this is not written in the Anocha, this is skipped in the Anocha. He said, really what I should have done is, I guess he was speaking sarcastically, I should have brought down the women down here. And I would send the men up to the Weibershul. And I should have spoken to the women. And then I would send the women back up and have the men come down again. And then I would speak to the men. Because when you speak to the women, they're stronger. They will work on it with a take much stronger. And they will also pay on the men to work on it. And the Rebbe said, as we see B'Negeya, they're sleeping by Farbrengen. The Rebbe complained many times why people sleep by the Farbrengen. So he said, who are the ones that are sleeping? It's the men, but not the women. And just like the men, when they sleep, it's not only when we speak a inyan in Kabbalah, in Remez, v'chul, like hard inyanim. Also when we speak about Pshat, Rasha, which is for Rabbi Chomesh Lemikra. they also fall asleep. The same way by the women is the opposite, that they don't sleep, not only when we talk about pshat, simple things, nor even when we're talking about drush and sod, which in the meantime, so far, they don't really understand it so much, and they also don't fall asleep. So the Rebbe said the same thing should have been done now, that if you speak to the women first, it'll be stronger. So the Rebbe said that the women have to know that it depends on them, and if they're going to go with the take of strong, it's going to work, and it'll be like the Chazal say, what's called a kosher woman who does the rotzon of her husband, but in Chassidus it says that what it means is she makes up the will of her husband. That means that she makes that the husband should want what the Eibishter wants, what the Torah wants. Then later on, the Rebbe continued and he said, and he started another inyan, and he said that since b'makom sheratzein shalodem shama nimtza, wherever the person's rotzen is, that's where he is, like the Baal Shem Tov says. So it comes out that really the women who want to listen, who want to hear, are really down here. And really those that are sleeping are really up there. And the Rebbe said, when I say those that are sleeping are really up there, I don't mean, like it says in Pirkei de Rebbe Lozer, that b'shas a person sleeps, the neshama eila l'mayla v'she'eves l'chaim. The neshama goes up l'mayla and draws life. But that's not what I mean. That could be before the Farbrengen, a half hour, before the Farbrengen, half hour, after the Farbrengen. But when I'm saying about sleeping, I'm speaking about Poshet sleeping in the Farbrengen, and really it's as if they're up there, meaning up there in the Weibershul. And the women who are listening and want to listen, it's as if they're down here, and B'meila, the woman could really do it with a teikim, they will be matzliach. The Alter Rebbe writes in Shulchan Aruch Siman Reish Samach Siv Gimel that there are some people who are makpid that when they cut their nails, they shouldn't cut it one finger after another, but they should skip a finger. And he says the Seder should be like this. You start with your left hand, and you start with the fourth finger, the one that's close to the pinky. And on the right hand, you start with the second finger, the one that's close to the thumb. And the siman is like this, the way to do the Seder. That on the right hand, it should be bidaiga. Bidaiga is Beis, Dalet, Aleph, Gimel, Hey. First the second finger, then the fourth, then the first, then the third, and the fifth. And then the left one is the Behago, Dalet, Beis, Hey, Gimel, Aleph. First the fourth, then the second, then the fifth, then the third, and the first. Then the Alter Rebbe adds V'yesh Maligi Melzeh. Some laugh at that, some poskim laugh at that. B'kol makem teiv li zoyer lechatchila. The Alter Rebbe paskins that lechatchila should be zoyer. So I want to show how by the Rebbe, even in hard times, he was so careful with everything, even in something like this. I heard from my Mechutin, Reb Moshe Klein, that he was with the Rebbe from when the Rebbe had the stroke, Chav Zayin Oder, till Gimel Tamas Tov Shinun Dalet. Because he worked in Atzola, so he was there with the Rebbe being Mishamish there by the Rebbe. He was aiding and helping there by the Rebbe. The nurses, there were male nurses there that helped the Rebbe, so they wanted to cut his nails. He Bishum Eifim wouldn't let. Bishum Eifim didn't let. They certainly wanted to cut the nails from his right hand because his right hand was paralyzed and his fist was tight. So when the nails grew, it's cutting into the flesh. So it is even bleeding. So they wanted to cut it. He Bishum Eifim wouldn't let. So Rav Moshe Klein came over to the Rebbe and he told the Rebbe, asking the Rebbe permission to cut his nails. And he said, I'm going to cut it in the right way. I'm going to cut it on one hand, Bedaigo, on the other hand, Dalet Beis Hey Gimel Aleph. Then I'm going to cut it the right way. The Rebbe smiled, and the Rebbe shook his head yes, and then he cut his nails that way, and the Rebbe didn't mind. And from then on, he would cut his nails. But here we see, even after the stroke, and the Rebbe was not able to talk and was not able to express himself why he didn't want to let him cut. So when he told him, I'm going to cut it the way it says in Shulchan Aruch, Teiv li zoy lechatchila, that lechatchila should be careful. So the Rebbe was very happy, and the Rebbe allowed him to cut it, and that's how he cut it from then on. On Rosh Chodesh Kislev Tov Shin Chov Dalet, Tzir Agudas Chabad, Tzach, sent out a letter to Anash calling for a special emergency meeting. And in the letter, they quoted a zettel that the Rebbe wrote, Ksav Yad Kodesh, to Tzach, and this is the reason they're calling the special meeting. And this is the Lashon that the Rebbe wrote. I'm going to read it in Hebrew and translate it in English. Mavhil, it's outrageous. That already going by 8 years, and the word Shmeina is underlined, more than 8 years. Nobody cares and nobody discusses, Asher that, Aleph, number one, Zakama v'kama shonim shalei netoisa b'tzir agudas Chabad af ish echot poel, that so many years that not one activist was added to Tzir Agudas Chabad. Aleile shehoyu b'tchila mamish, on top of those that were there in the beginning, mamish in the beginning. Afila ha-mesayim shenitaisu, even those that do help that were added, dash, they are from those that anyway would have come to Lubavitch, not that you did anything about it. Then in brackets, the Rebbe writes, it's impossible that this should not minimize in the activities, besides the thing itself, end of the brackets. Base, there's no real movement, no mamishdik movement. The word mamosh is underlined concerning the financial situation. And even if you were given an opportunity, a finished opportunity, a ready opportunity, which is connected to Machne Yisrael, the Rebbe writes, you're still having a hard time with it. So the Rebbe was upset why there are no more people working in the work of Tzir Agudas Chabad. So they called a very special asif, an emergency meeting, and after that meeting, a lot of people started helping in the work of Tzir Agudas Chabad. One of the main things that the Rebbe would speak about was the inyan of Hamaisa Ho'iker. Based on the Lashon of the Mishnah, Lo Yamed Rishikir El HaMaisa, the main thing is the Maisa is to do. And he would say many times the Lashon, Tapora da Placha, which in Russian would indicate the concept of Hamaisa Ho'iker, that everything has to come down the Maisa. It's not enough if it's in theory, it has to come down the Maisa. So I want to mention there's a story that the Rebbe told about the Mezritcher Magid in many Fabrengens. And as far as I know, 7 times the Rebbe told this story, but some of the times I was there. So I would want to repeat that story because that brings out, the Rebbe brought out with this story to Nekuda of Amaisa Ho'iker. And the Rebbe told this story from what I remember is in Tovshin Chov Daled, Achen Shel Pesach, Tovshin Chavov, Yem Simchas Torah, Tovshin Lamed Daled, Leil Simchas Torah before Akofes, Tovshin Mem Aleph, the first Fabrengen in Shabbos Breishis, Tovshin Mem Aleph, Yud Gimel Nisan Tovshin Mem Beis. But I know that the Rebbe spoke about it before, times when I wasn't there. Once was Tovshin Yud Zayin, Shabbos Parshas Re'eh, and the other time is Tovshin Chov, Purim Tovshin Chov. And I'm going to repeat the story the way the Rebbe said it, Tovshin Chov Dalet. Basically, he said the same story in all the times, more or less the same way, but sometimes few details, small kleinigkeiten, were not exactly the same. So I'll repeat it the way he said it in Tovshin Chov Dalet. It's a story about the Magid. That the Magid had a chaver that was his chaver before he became a Talmud of the Baal Shem Tov. And the Magid then already was a big gon and a big mekubal, so you could imagine his chaver who he was. And so he learned with his chaver Nigla and Kabbalah, and they would daven long. So his chaver once came to him, happened to be in Mezerich, and he came to the Magid, and he asked him, why do I see that you daven so long, longer than when we used to be chaverim, the way you used to daven? Even though I'm sure you daven with Kavanas Arizal, etc., but we also davened with Kavanas Arizal, and I still daven with Kavanas Arizal. And the Rebbe said, since it was a chaver of the Magid, obviously this was be'emes, it wasn't just a made-up thing. So he said, I also daven Kavanas Arizal, but it doesn't take that long. What takes you so long? The Magid did not answer him on that question, continue with the conversation. He just asked him, what do you do? What do you live on? How do you make a living? So he told him that most of the year he sits and learns Torah. And the Yonim of Parnasa is all through his wife, the Akeres Habayis. Except a few weeks a year, when it comes the time of the Yerid in Leipzig, then his wife prepares everything that he needs, but he travels to Leipzig, to the Yerid, and there he buys the schayra, the merchandise. He comes home, gives it to his wife, and he continues learning, and she takes care of doing the business in the store. So the Magid asked him, why do you have to spend so much time traveling there and then coming back? It takes you a few weeks. Why can't you? And then you can't really learn. Even though for sure the Rebbe said that he used to learn during the trips also, but obviously it's not the same as he would stay home. What you could have done is stay home, but sit down and be misbeinen in all the details that have to do with your traveling to Yerid. Be misbeinen that you're traveling in the train and that you're making this stop and then another stop and then you come into the Yerid and then you're dealing with the things to buy this merchandise and then the whole trip back, and you think every detail of what's going to happen when you go to the Yerid. And it'll take you whatever amount of hours it'll take you to go through all this, but it won't take you weeks. It'll just take you a few hours. So why do you spend weeks to go there? So he said to the Maggid, you look like a batlin. Because we need the merchandise. And if I don't travel, actually, I won't have the merchandise. So the Maggid said, oh, that's my answer to your question. You could have with Kavanas Arizal, but you don't have the schera. You think of different madregas, you don't have the merchandise. And in order to have the merchandise, it takes you much longer. And this is the way he was explaining that when he davens and he goes through all these kavanas, he's actually there and he takes the merchandise from there. And with this, the Rebbe brought out that the main thing is you have to have the merchandise. You have to have the maisa b'peil. You can have all kinds of kavanas, but you're not there. You don't have it. Now, the Rebbe, some of the times when he told this story, said that he heard this from the Frierdiker Rebbe told the story. Now, what we do know is that the Frierdiker Rebbe in Tofreish Tzadik, Shabbos Parshas Yisrei, the Frierdiker Rebbe spoke about this story because in the Siches of Tofreish Tzadik, all it says is that in the Suda of Shabbos Friday night Parshas Yisrei, in that Suda the Rebbe spoke, the Frierdiker Rebbe spoke about the story with the Magi, with the Kavanas Atfilah, that Medav Hom the Schera, that you have to be there. In order to get the merchandise, you have to be there. But it doesn't say what he said. Now, in the Sefer Asichas Tofreish Tzadik that Merkaz gave out, they have a ha'orah there, and they tell the similar story, but a little bit different the way it's printed in Ginz and Historis. Not with the chaver of the Magid, but somebody who came to the Magid, etc., etc. Now, we don't know exactly how the Frierdiker Rebbe told the story, because the ha'orah, they just bring what they say, they print it in Ginz and Historis. It doesn't say how the Frierdiker Rebbe told the story. So from the Rebbe, since he told this story in the way of a chaver and all the details, all the times, the same way, obviously, the Rebbe heard from the Frierdiker Rebbe the story in the way he told the story. And with this, he brought out this nakuda, that we have to have the merchandise, we have to have the maisa. We all know that when we say Krishma, so when we say the line, Baruch Shem Kveid Malchus Elei Lavod, we have to say it quietly, as different reasons are given. Except on Yom Kippur when we say it loud. But like this, we have to say it quietly. And naturally, in many Sidurim, is printed right next to the line, Baruch Shem Kveid, the Chulu, is printed the word Balachash. And the emphasis in the Siddur Tilas Hashem, in the original print of the Siddur Tilas Hashem, it also said that. It said the word Balachash right next to the line, Baruch Shem Kveid Malchus Elei Lavod. And if I remember correctly, one Heitzah that was printed in Beisefer Litfus and Beisefer Lemlocha and Kvar Chabad, it said the word Balachash, but it was crossed out, if I remember correctly. Later, they took out the word Balachash completely, and the word Balachash doesn't say, even though we know that we have to say it Balachash, we have to say it quietly. And I remember when they took it out, I don't remember who told me, but I remember some people who were involved in this told me that the Rebbe said to stop printing it that way, and gave a reason. And I don't remember when it was, why it was, what the reason was, but I do remember that there was a time when it was changed, that the word Balachash was taken out. And the reason was given, and it came from the Rebbe, that's what they said then. But I don't remember. If somebody remembers, would be a good idea to let me know or something, but I don't remember. But I remember clearly that word Balachash was taken out, and it's not printed in all the Sidurim now. When the Likud for Likutei Siches, for Parshas Tzav, Tovshin Lamed Gimel came out, some people saw the Rechidush in Halacha that they thought otherwise differently. And that is, B'negeya, whether you have to stand when you say Mizmer L'Seidah. Because in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, in Madura Kama, we know that Alter Rebbe on the first four Simonim wrote a Madura Basra. Madura Kama means a first version. He wrote the Shulchan Aruch from the beginning and goes on and on and on. But on the first four Simonim, the Alter Rebbe wrote a Madura Basra. We have a Madura Basra, a second version, where he changed certain halachas, changed his mind. So Madura Kama, the way he wrote it first, that's Siman Aleph, Sif Yudalad. The Alter Rebbe writes, Tzorich Leimer Parshas HaKarbonis Mumet. When we say the Parsha of Karbonis, in the beginning of davening of Shachris, before we say Heidun, the Parshas HaKarbonis, so the Alter Rebbe says that when you say the Parshas HaKarbonis, you have to say it while you're standing. V'chein mizmer l'seder. When you say mizmer l'seder, you have to stand. And he gives a reason. Dugmas hakravoson shehoisa mumeh. Just like when they were makrib, but the Kayin was makrib the karbonis, and also the korban teda, which mizmer l'seder reminds us of the korban teda, he was standing. So therefore, the Alter Rebbe says, when you say pashas hakarbonis and mizmer l'seder, you have to stand. In Madura Basra, in Siman Aleph, Sof, Sif Tes, the Alter Rebbe changed. And the Alter Rebbe says like this: Ukeshayemar pashas hakarbonis, yemar beyem, shehuz manak hakravosim v'lei balayla. When you say the pashas hakarbonis, you have to say it when it's day already, and you can't say it at night, because at night was not the time when they brought the korban. Avol ein sorich leimer moment. But you don't have to say it standing, kumei hakayin shoyavid moment. Like the Kayin used to do the Aveda, used to bring the karbonis standing. Me'acha shehu einenu Kayin Ovid, because he is not the Kayin who's doing the Aveda. It's only that when he reads it, he says these parshas, Hashem, the Torah, considers it as if he was makrib, but he's not really makrib. So therefore, the Alter Rebbe says here that you do not have to say the parshas HaKabbana standing. And he changed his mind from what he writes in Madura Kama, that you do have to say it standing. So many people learned that if the Alter Rebbe changed his mind, saying that you don't have to say the Pashas HaKarbonis standing, he also probably changed his mind from that he says before that you have to say Mizmer L'Seita standing, for the same reason. Over there in Adura Kama he says that you have to say Pashas HaKarbonis and Mizmer L'Seita standing. Here he changed and he said you don't have to say Pashas HaKarbonis standing. So it refers to Pashas also to Mizmer L'Seita. So it comes out that according to the Alter Rebbe in Madura Basra, you do not have to say Mizmer L'Seita while you're standing. But when the Sikha came out, in Ha'orah 52, the Rebbe writes differently, and this is printed in Lekutei Sichos, Chelik Yud Beis, page 28, and this is Ha'orah 52, and the Rebbe says clearly that when the Alter Rebbe changed his mind, and he says that you don't have to stand by Pashas HaKarbonis, it does not include Mizmer L'Seida. By Mizmer L'Seida, you have to stand even according to the Madura Basra. And as we see, when he says that you don't have to stand, he doesn't mention Mizmer L'Seida. He just says by Pashas HaKarbonis. While over there, when he said you do have to stand by Pashas HaKarbonis, he says also Mizmer L'Seida. That's in Madura Kama. But in Madura Basra, when he says you don't have to stand, he doesn't mention Mizmer L'Seida. So the Rebbe learns Pshat that according to the Alter Rebbe, even according to the Madura Basra, the second version, which is the last version, the way we have to keep, is that by Mizmer L'Seida you have to stand. And this was Achidish by some people who thought that according to the Madura Basra, you don't have to stand by Mizmer L'Seida. But I want to add that nevertheless, as much as the Rebbe said that, writes that, he gave a place, left a place for the possibility that according to Madura Basra, you don't have to stand by Mizmer L'Seida. Because later on in the Sikha, on page 29, the Rebbe mentions there that it gives the reason according to the Sikha why you have to stand by Mizmer L'Seida. So the Rebbe writes there that you have to stand by Mizmer L'Seida, and in parentheses, b'ma'adura kama akolponim. At least in the first, according to the first version, this is the reason why you have to stand. In other words, from here it seems that for the first version of Avada you have to stand by. Second, according to the Madura Basra, it's not clear. At least according to the Madura Kama. In other words, there's a place to say that when the Alter Rebbe changed his mind in Madura Basra and said that you don't have to stand by Pashas HaKarbonis, there's a svara to say that you also don't have to stand by Mizmer L'Seida. According to the first version, for sure you have to stand by Mizmer L'Seida. But according to the second version, it's not clear. That's what the Rebbe writes. Only at a Kaponim Madura Kama. Now, Lamaisa, the Rebbe doesn't hold like that. And he has a ha'orah here, avol. And when he says, according to the Madura Kama, for sure you have to stand. He writes in ha'orah 56, avol, re'ei li'ila, ha'orah 52. But look before the ha'orah 52, where the Rebbe says that even according to Madura Basra, you have to stand by Mizmer L'Seida. So the Maaseh, he says that you have to stand even according to Madura Basra. But in the Pnima Sikha, he leaves a place for such a svara. And therefore he says that at least according to the Madura Kama, you have to stand by Mizmer L'Seida. Which means there's a possibility that Madura Basra, maybe not. Even though Lamaise, the Rebbe says clearly that you do have to stand by Mizmer L'Seida, even according to the Madura Basra, and this is Take, the way our minig is. But this was a chidush to some people who thought otherwise. One of the things that the Rebbe spoke about quite a few times was that everything that he does has a ripple effect. He can't tell you that it's only the geya to me, that's my business. because whatever you do affects other Yidden, and by other people it can get worse and worse and worse. Therefore, we have to be very careful. So I want to repeat a story that the Rebbe told, and this is Shabbos Pasha Shmini Tov Shinchov Ches. And he told it in the name of the Frierdiker Rebbe, but he told the story Bekitzer. So I'm going to tell the story the way the Rebbe said it then. And also then I'll tell the story the way the Frierdiker Rebbe told it, Yutas Kislev, Tov Reish Pei Dalet. And the Rebbe said that there was a person who was called Yoshe der Klotz. Yoshe was his name, Yosef der Klotz. He was a Yid that learned 18 hours of Misles, and because he was so poor, he didn't have a chair, so he would sit on a piece of wood. And since he shokol bachas he was learning, so after a while, there became in the klotz means a piece of wood, became a place like a seat. And therefore, he was called Yoshe the Klotz. So they asked him, you're learning at 30, 40 years, you're learning 18 hours a day. Why can't you stop learning a little bit, a half hour less? Learn only 17 and a half hours. And he said, if I'm going to learn less, another Yid, and I think the Loshen Rebbe said that take your zun, can bite in the rendel. The pharmacist's son in the city could change his rendel, which the Rebbe says in Russian, this was an expression that they used to use, someone who shmatzach, someone who converts chas v'sholom. So they asked him, what do you mean? So he said, when he learns 18 hours, the one that's in a lower level than him learns a little bit less, and the other one learns a little bit less, because everyone looks to the one higher, and if the one higher is starting to be less, so he also could be less. Till the lowest level of a Yid, the lowest darge, if he becomes less, there's nothing else that he has. The only thing he has is that he didn't shmatzach. That's his only Yiddishkeit. And if he goes less, that means he will shmatzach. And the Rebbe said the same thing is in the good side. Adrabbe, good side is even more that whatever you do, then it has an effect on others. This is the way the Rebbe told the story, Shabbos Pasha Shmini Tov Shinchov Ches. The Frierdiker Rebbe told the story more ba'ariches. And he said it was the Asifes HaRabbonim Shnas Etar Tov Reish Ayin. There were a lot of Rabbonim in the hotel. They were all together. And the Frierdiker Rebbe was Meshamish them. So he was also Meshamish Reb Chaim Brisker. So Reb Chaim Brisker told him that his father, Reb Yoshe Ber, would say twice a week a big pilpul for the two lamdim in Brisk. Bedel der Horb gives a different name here. And Kalma der Klotz. They used to call them like that because they learned a lot. So Bedel learned so much that he got a Horb. A Horb means a hunchback. So he was called Bedel the hunchback. And Kalman learned so much on a piece of wood that he made a hole in the wood from sitting on it so much. And they were great gainim, and he said the pilpul for them. Once there was a story in Brisk that one Yid was taken to jail, and he was going to have a trial, etc., etc. So the Yoshe Ber and a Jewish lawyer were involved in trying to save him. They made up a certain day that they're going to go wherever they have to go to try to save him. When the day came, this lawyer came to the place where he was sitting, and he saw him sitting, came to the house. They told the house of Rabbi Yoshe Ber, they told him that he's in Bismedrish. They went to Bismedrish. He saw that Rabbi Yoshe Ber is giving a shir in Gemara and being a bil pilpul with Berel der Horb and Kalman the Klotz in the Yonim of Tumu V'Tara. He didn't want to disturb him, so he waited on the side. After a while, Yoshe Ber saw him. He told his Talmidim, he got to stop because I have to go for something at Pekuach Nefesh, and they both went. On the way, the lawyer asked Rabbi Yoshe Ber, please could explain to me, what are you involved in here? First of all, what's Negei Tumu V'Tara now? And also, whom are you giving the shir for? For Bedel the Horb and Kalman the Klotz? They themselves lummed him. So he said to him like this, Fashtaista, you have to understand like this. I say a pilpul for them. If I say a pilpul for them, so then in another shul, they say a blood Gemara. They learn a blood Gemara. In the other shul, they just learn a simple Gemara. Another shul, further, another shir, they learn Mishnayos, etc., etc. Another one doesn't learn, but he goes 3 times a day to daven in shul. And there are some people that go to shul only in the morning. Then lower than that, someone who goes to the shul only Shabbos, and only someone who goes only Yontif. Till the aptaker Zun, the pharmacist's son, only goes Rosh and Yom Kippur. But if I'm not going to say the pilpul, so in the other place, they're not going to learn the blood Gemara. In the other place, they're not going to learn the Gemara. Till, etc., till the aptaker Zun, the pharmacist Zun, the lowest madrege, won't even come to shul on Rosh and Yom Kippur. So that's the same story, but here the Rebbe said he will shmadzach, and he called him a different name, Yoshe the Horb, Yoshe the Klotz, I mean. So, but it's the same story with the Frierdiker told it more barichas, and Rebbe told it Kitzer like this, the way I mentioned before. But all this is to bring out that you have to remember whatever you do has a ripple effect.